Yes, we need to upload this to YouTube. But now, like I said, we can do a quick poll. And I don't know where the poll feature is on this. I had polls ready. I'm so sad now. It's all right. But if anyone here is doing their first ever hackathon this weekend, can you raise your hand in chat? I just want to see a quick sort of gauge of everyone here. Cool, cool, cool. So we have like a pretty decent amount of people in chat doing their first ever hackathon. Yeah, I think my first hackathon as well was SD Hacks 2018 during my first year. So like that was back in October when everything was in person. So I think within my first month at UCSD, it was really crazy to be able to go to a hackathon, especially in person. But wow, actually it looks like about a third, about like a half. Here they're sort of at their first hackathon. So cool. Just a quick introduction about myself. My name is Stanley. I am currently a Vice President of Development at ACM UCSD. I also run a lot of the stuff behind side projects, and you may have seen me around a little bit at ACM Innovate events. I'm no longer on ACM Innovate, but I do like to host workshops, so this was a really great opportunity for me to sort of help out this quarter. But yeah, oh yeah, also I won like a we'll talk about that later. But here's the check-in code for everyone wanting to check into our membership portal. If you're not an ACM member already, go to acmucsd.com and use the check-in code ACE Hackathons or POG. I did not create this check-in code, but yeah, if you're not an ACM member, you can come into acmucsd.com, create an account, become a member, and you can basically rack up these points over time so that coming fall, you can redeem it for some swag, redeem it for some stickers, shirts, all that stuff. But I'll leave the screen up for like another few minutes or like another few seconds before we go to the next one. So if anyone else is coming in, Hackathons or Pod, go to acmucsd.com to check in and become an ACM member today. Cool. So our agenda today will be pretty quick. So I'll be going over 5 facets. 1, what is a hackathon? 2, what is there to do at a virtual hackathon? Type of projects I can do, judging, and sort of my secret recipe to winning a hackathon. So what is a hackathon? A hackathon is a 36, sometimes 24-hour sprint in which you'll team with up to 4 other members for a grand project. It's a great place to learn about new stuff, meet other people, and build something to really show off. I know this weekend is SD Hacks, so this is a picture of SD Hacks 2019, 18, I think 19. So this was the year before all the first years came this year. So I was like way in like the upper left field, but I included this image, which is a little bit unfortunate because we're in a virtual format. But hackathons are basically this huge, oh, is there out there? This huge venue in which you have like dozens and dozens of tables lined up against each other with like hundreds and thousands of like laptops, a lot of free food, all that stuff. And because of the pandemic this year, we unfortunately can't have a hackathon like this. So we'll be going towards a virtual format. And I'll talk a little bit about that later. So I think everyone is sort of mostly here for SD Hacks. Like I said, I'm generalizing these slides a little bit towards just hackathons in general, just for the sake of like recording this and for anyone wants to view it in the future. But for some SD Hacks specific stuff, there are sort of 4 key tracks today. The first one being remote education. So I know an app idea I built last year, for example, was this sort of lecture styled application that translated any sort of language into another language real time. So that would be sort of an example of something you could do there. Sustainability, it's a sort of self-explanatory. Think of like, how can I improve the environment? I know I have like a meme within like a lot of my friends in hackathons that are like, oh, let's go build another smart trash can, which is like, how do you sort like trash between like whether it's garbage, recycling, or other stuff. I also have urban innovation. So I also created another project code like this, which was like, how can we sort of improve urban planning for a lot of buildings. So anything you can really do to improve your city. And lastly, civic engagement, how you can get your fellow peers to be engaged civically. I don't really have an example for that, but yeah, those are the 4 tracks. Like I said, if you want to start out with an idea or something, really pick one of these tracks and sort of hash out your idea around that sort of problem space. So these will be your sort of guiding categories in which you'll be under. So something to also keep in note this weekend is that I believe there is a jam-packed schedule of events. The first one being the one today, which is like how to sort of hackathon workshop. I really, really recommend everyone to sort of go to the YC keynote. Also, quick plug, come to the ACM Build Your Own Server and JavaScript workshop, and really just go to all of the other workshops because it's going to be a really fun time to get to know other people. But yeah, one sec. Oh. All right. So here is an example of how I would approach 36 hours. So this schedule doesn't mean you need to go to every single event. Of course, you can really pick and choose however you want to take your hackathon, but this would be an example of how I approached my SD hacks my second year. So this was sort of tuned for in-person planning, but from 6 to 9 p.m. I check in, find a table, network, sort of do individual team formation. From 9 to 10:30, that would often be the opening ceremony and official team formation. 10:30 to 12, I would brainstorm, research the company challenges and APIs I would use. And something extremely important that I would do is that I would start wireframing and start designing things on Figma, pull up like any design docs and really get all of the preparation at the very beginning because it goes a really, really long way. So from 12 to 4 a.m., you can start coding, sort of flesh out the game plan, assign tasks, and solidify the idea. And contrary to, I guess, like what many people say, you actually can sleep during a hackathon. I try to get in a lot of my sleep the first night because I always know that during the second night, I'm going to be cramming until the morning. So that's sort of my sort of strategy going to hackathons is that sleep a lot on the first night because the second night, you're not going to sleep at all. So from like 9 to 12 when I wake up, I'll be coding, eating breakfast. 12 to 12:30 lunch while coding. And then I really, really love checking out the booths, the workshops, and meeting hackers. I know like between hackathons, I would like love to go between tables and just like meet other teams. In this situation, I think you have like voice channels and text channels in which you can talk to other people. So definitely utilize those and use this as a chance to talk to other people, get some LinkedIn requests going on, and meet like-minded people that you'd like to team up with in the future too. So Ronak asked, how do I stay awake? Glad you asked. So I'm not an official sponsor of yerba mate, but this is my favorite yerba flavor. It's passion fruit. It's 140 milligrams of caffeine. So that's how you stay awake. Had it ready. So I'm not gonna go over this too much, but day 2, really just coding, a lot of coding. And yeah, at the end, I didn't include this, but I believe around 9 or 10 a.m. of day 3, which is Sunday, you're going to be required to submit a dev post. And the dev post requires a lot of stuff like a write-up on the background, requires stuff about the challenges and tech stack that you have. And yeah, you'll be submitting, I believe, a video for most hackathons. Some hackathons do have live judging. I'll talk about this a little bit later, but it'll be a really fun weekend and really, really emphasize that you put a lot of time into fleshing out a really good video, a dev post presentation. So what changes once we're in a virtual hackathon? Everything is pretty much the same, except just virtual and at home. And also like no free food anymore. This is the saddest thing that happened to my year because I used to have a really, really tall stack of these, like about like 2 feet high worth of just like hackathon drinks. And unfortunately, I can't steal hackathon drinks anymore. So I no longer have a caffeine stash. And now I have to buy it like a normal person. F in chat, everyone. So we also have online social and events. So I believe at the end of SD Hacks, we have typing socials. Another quick plug, JS Workshops tonight by ACM Hack, please come. And really, judging has just really turned virtual. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but I said it comes in sort of two formats. One being videos, and two, which is a little bit less common, which are live judging sort of panels. So there are sort of three types of projects that we'll be covering today, but there are an infinite type, really. So the first one I'll be going over is full stack. Typically, web applications are split against two sides. So there's the front end, and then there's the back end. Typically, on a team of developers, I try to have like 2 or 3 front end developers. I have like one front end developer that's a little bit more tuned to design, and sometimes I'll have 1 or 2 back end developers. So depending on your project, it really sort of shifts back and forward on how many back end and front end developers that you want. But to explain some more, the front end is what you really see on the screen. It's comprised of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So HTML, the sort of tags that you see on the screen, like paragraphs and headers. CSS makes everything really pretty by adding colors, adding fonts, laying everything out. And JavaScript is really nowadays used for everything. JavaScript is used for the interactions that you see on screen as well. So if you want to hide and show a paragraph of text, JavaScript can do that. Now, I'll talk a little bit about the backend. The backend is where the data is held, all of the calculations are made. So if you have a user, you would have something called a schema, right? And underneath that schema, you would have their name, their email, their last name, all of that stuff, and you would store that in the backend. So the front end would request from the backend, I want this data so I can show it on my screen using HTML and CSS and JavaScript. So some common things that you would use for backend would be, I recommend personally, Node.js. I personally also used Flask for my first hackathon. Also Firebase really works very well. Quick note about Firebase though is that it's a little bit weird because it's not traditional, as in it's a backend as a service. So you don't need to worry too much about that, but just know that Node.js, Flask are a lot more code centric, and you'll be like opening VS Code a lot and typing like routes and everything, whereas like Firebase, you're sort of pinging the routes from the front end. Still, people sometimes learn on these on the day of the hackathon if they don't know them. Yes, I did not. I never prepared for like a hackathon like a day before. I always learned everything like the day of the hackathon or like days of the hackathon. Fun fact, I know at Caltech my first year, I teamed with a few friends and they went off to like go party at UCLA, and I was just there alone one night for about like 2 or 3 days until I saw them the third day, and I just like spent like 10 hours just watching YouTube videos until I finally learned Flask. So that was a traumatizing yet very how to explain it. I learned a lot. So mobile projects. Unfortunately, I am not a mobile developer, so Ronak had to help me with these slides. If you want to chip in, you can chip in, but you can choose to develop for a platform-specific app or sort of cross-platform. If you want to develop only for iOS, you can use Swift. If you want to develop for Android, you can use Kotlin or Java. React Native, you can use JavaScript, Flutter, you can use Dart, and yeah, I think I'll let Ronak talk a little bit more about this because I am not TNT mobile development.
All right, hello. So with mobile development, the biggest thing to understand is that you can kind of go either fully self-contained or you can go with a backend. So just like with front end, there's a backend involved in everything. But because of how mobile development works, you can kind of stick everything inside your app. Not necessarily the best practice, but like a lot of companies have built their initial apps entirely self-contained. So they'll put all the backends and server stuff in the front end because mobile development is hiding everything. In terms of platform specific versus cross-platform, I'd recommend not going with platform specific unless you have that actual device, especially if you're going to do an iOS dev. Unless everyone has a Mac, you actually cannot develop because Apple has basically gatekeeped it. If you want to do cross-platform, I highly recommend either React Native or Flutter. There are other things. They're not good. I think Xamarin's not bad, but like I would just recommend going with React Native or Flutter. They're both really good. There's a lot of good tutorials on it. React Native has this thing called Expo, which is really nice to instantly deploy apps, and it's very similar to React. But yeah, I would really recommend just don't be afraid to learn a new language. All languages are very similar. So one of the biggest things I learned at hackathons is that every language is effectively the same thing, but with different syntax. And you're like, wait, oh wow, I'm a coder, and you can just keep putting programming languages on your resume. So yeah, highly recommend that. And if you don't know something, just feel free to ask. If I would do a quick breakdown, Swift is Java but with weird things. Kotlin is Java but with even more weird things. JavaScript is its own thing. Dart I don't really know much about, so I can't stereotype it. But in general, with all these languages, you can kind of learn it. React Native is actually so similar to React that whenever I like try to ask someone for help, I just ask them regular React help, and then they can do the same thing because everything kind of ports over. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, if you're on a Windows PC, you're not going to develop iOS.
Oh yeah.
You just straight up cannot. Like, it's impossible.
Apple doesn't like it.
You can use React Native to develop for iOS, but you won't be able to test.
No, you
unless
can't.
you have an iPhone.
You can't. Actually, no, you can't. No, I think you can with Expo.
Expo?
I believe with React Native Expo, you should be able. Hackintoshing, I can tell you firsthand, I have spent too much of my life with Hackintoshes. They work. It's not, I would not recommend it. I have too many computers that are like not usable because of how many Hackintoshing, how much Hackintosh. For those who don't know, Hackintosh is like when you legally download the Mac image file and put it on a Windows laptop, but Apple doesn't like any of their software to be run on anything that's not a MacBook Pro that costs at least $2,000. So very problematic, but it's fun. Yeah. A Hackintosh project would actually probably take you the weekend. So if you don't want to do a hackathon, you can just spend the weekend trying to boot Mac on your Windows. Boot Mac on your Windows laptop.
Okay. But yeah, that was just a quick rundown on mobile. I think Ronak, since you've also done a hardware project, you're probably a good person to talk about this as well.
Okay, so with hardware, I love hardware projects. They're a lot of fun. The biggest problem is it's all virtual. So unless your team is next to you and if you live together, I would recommend not doing hardware. It's a lot of fun because hardware, in my opinion, always looks cooler because it's more impressive to us software folks because they're like, whoa, physical it actually does something. But if I was to recommend how to approach it, I'd really recommend kind of doing a Raspberry Pi project or an Arduino project. You would have to have these devices ahead of time. I don't think SD Hacks has the capacity to give it. When we are in the beautiful world of in-person, they usually do loan out hardware, and it's really cool. But yeah, I think the next slide has resources.
Oh yeah, I put the resources at the end, but
okay.
actually, MLH is shipping out hardware kits for everyone, but you do need to request it way beforehand. And yeah, I don't know. I think hardware projects, like Ronak said, are just so tricky with a virtual format, especially if you're meeting everyone like online through Slack or like through Discord. It's pretty much impossible to try to coordinate it. I don't know, unless they're like robots you can control.
What you could do is if like one of you has like a bunch of hardware and the other team doesn't, you could like kind of make a hybrid thing. So one thing I've seen and that could be cool is like one person builds like a hardware kind of device, and then the other team builds like a full stack app that communicates with the hardware project. So you can be like, wow. So like if you want to, right? I don't know if anyone knows, there's like these apps where you can play on vending machines. I think the vending machines in Japan, and you can control the claw on your phone. So you can build something like that where one person has the hardware and everyone else kind of works on the front end. A lot of work, but it's really cool because hardware is really cool to look at and does cool things. For more resources, I would recommend like checking out IEEE HCAN. They know way more about hardware. And yeah.
Cool. And there are a lot more projects that we're not covering today. There's stuff like like VR. There's like game-based projects that we don't really know too much about, but those are also avenues in which you can explore as well. Really, anything sort of tech, anything code design related, you can do at a hackathon. Your imagination can go wild. So how does judging work? Before we had a virtual format, the way it would work is that you get assigned a table and judges would come up to you for about 1 or 2 times and you would do something called a pitch for 2 minutes. But now it's a little bit different because we're in the pandemic. Most hackathons will allow you to submit a video or do virtual judging and sometimes a combination. I know a lot of hackathons are sort of pivoting towards that sort of video format because everything's sort of asynchronous now anyways. But yeah, I think Runaf links a really good sort of slide or like sort of workshop on how to craft your pitch. I'll be showing a pitch right after this as well. But yeah, either way, you'll need to submit a dev post. And I'll be talking about what a dev post is, but think of dev post as this sort of platform in which you submit your project, other people can view it, and you write up a little bit about it as well. I think the next slide will be a quick video as to what this pitch is. Let me know if you can hear the audio. So this is an example. I'm not going to go through all of it.
Givey is a web application that allows you to scan household items and see whether those items can be donated to a local food shelter, food bank, or homeless shelter that is in need so that we can optimize your donation. Firstly, we had to define the problem space, and we identified it against two fronts. First, as a donor, I need to make sure that the food or clothes that I donate to a shelter, food bank, really makes an impact and makes the most change. From the shelter's perspective, we need to ensure that any donations that we get, we really need so that we don't have to throw it away. Because believe it or not, it's recommended that you don't even donate canned food to food banks simply because one, a lot of them are already expired, and two, they're already extremely high in sodium, so that they're not the most nutritious source of food. Not only that, California right now has a homelessness crisis. The United States, or rather the United Nations, has compared San Francisco to the slums of New Delhi and Mexico City due to the amount of tents. So not only has this problem become more pervasive, especially in times like this, like COVID-19, it becomes more important than ever to really bolt down on these shelters. So what if there was a solution that made donating to food banks, homeless shelters, and public resources in need easier for the average person? And this is where Givey comes in. Givey is community through donation. We use computer vision to scan household items, get recommended local shelters, food banks, etc., to optimize that donation, and then reveal real-time statistics of those local shelters. The feature list will come a little bit in the demo, but you scan your items, look at the 3D models on the map, select which sort of center you want to donate to, and then hit confirm. It's as easy as that. When developing a solution, we utilize a design and technical thinking process. But first, on the design side, we use the double diamond process and created user personas so that we could closely resonate before creating any of our list of features and before even designing the front end or UI UX of this app.
I'm going to skip a little bit around, but I just went over the design process here, technical stack, and then
processor, all
yeah, it's technical stack. And I'll start the demo here. Ideally, I wanted for the demo to be 3 minutes rather than 2 minutes, but I had to do a voiceover, so I had no choice.
A little bit love landmarks.
Yeah. So yeah, what you can do for the I'll talk about the dev post a little bit after this, and I'll definitely link it in chat. But what was I saying? Yeah, so what you can do if you really want is that if like the app is only working very successfully on one person's computer, what we oftentimes do is have the person record in their computer, and then I just do a voiceover or like the reverse or something. But yeah, this is sort of the breakdown of the structure that I like to approach hackathon videos to. Since SD Hacks is a lot shorter, we should put Ngrok as a resource. But since hackathons are a lot shorter than 5 minutes typically, this is like an exception. I would really recommend spending no more than like 30 seconds to 1 minute on your sort of pitch or an explanation of your topic. And then like another minute 30 on the actual demo, because that's what the judges will be actually judging for. This sort of slide deck, the sort of explanation is just like the cherry on top. Sometimes hackathon teams don't even give a slide deck, or they don't even give a presentation. They just do full 2-3 minutes on demo only. And that's also another feasible option if you are strapped on time, or if you feel like your demo requires that much.
My name is Stanley, and
I don't want this video anymore. So yeah, I want to go back to DevPost. So like I said, DevPost is a website in which you are required to list your project. You need to go over what you did, the challenges you overcame, and a quick tip for everybody is just to use a bunch of images. I'm gonna go over this quick example really quickly. I think everyone should be able to see my screen. Let me know if you can't. But this is an example of a dev post I did at HackACI. I actually didn't do this. Emily did this. But regardless, I think every single time you make a dev post, you get like a sort of template, which is like background, challenges you overcame, goals for the future. Don't delete that template. I think for your first hackathon or like, I don't know, for your first few hackathons, just use the template and just start writing stuff in. This matters extremely more for a virtual format because you just can't communicate everything through a video anymore. So anything that you don't put in the video should be said directly in the dev post. And something that you really need to emphasize is that if you're doing like a company's APIs challenge or something, or you're using some company's sort of data, I don't know, spreadsheet or something, be sure to mention that in the video, and also be sure to mention that in the dev post, because I can almost guarantee you for like the judges for like, I don't know, Google GCP, right? They're gonna be control Fing what sort of like stack that you use and what sort of technologies that you use. So be sure to mention that in the dev post. So for this one specifically, we just went over like background first, like define the problem space, sort of key features of the app, how it was built. We emphasized a lot more on the design side for this hackathon because there was a UI UX category. So that's why we really try to emphasize design here. Yeah, some more stuff about design. And then we went over sort of engineering, front end stuff, back end stuff, and yeah, all the takeaways. So I think this is like a default sort of section header that you'll have. And at the very bottom, you'll be required to link your GitHub and anything else. Some hackathons are a little bit more lax on this. They'll allow you to only use like a Figma. They'll only allow you to like upload a video. But generally speaking, you still want to upload your GitHub repo and all the resources that you use so other hackers can come through and look at all of them. But yeah, I think just as a really quick tour around DevPost real quick, I highly recommend everyone make an account really quickly. It takes really short amount of time to set up. You're going to be using this in the future if you ever go to another hackathon. And yeah, you can even browse other hackathons here, which is pretty cool. But some of these aren't US based, so be aware of that. But yeah, this is like an example of like a dev post. It's like, what's an example? It's like, I really can't compare it to anything else. It's like LinkedIn, but only for hackathons, but not really. It's like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah, it's a portfolio website for like projects, basically. Typically just for hackathons, but you can actually put on your own projects as well. Yeah, you can just add just normal stuff to your portfolio, which is pretty cool. But yeah, that was just a quick run through on that. I'm going to go back to the slides really quickly. So I believe this is the second to last slide before I go over some quick questions. So I think this is like the slide that a lot of people are like asking for, which is like, how do I win a hackathon? And I sort of want to preface this by saying that if it's like your first hackathon, there's nothing wrong with sort of going under the mindset of like, I want to win first place, I want to win a category. But I almost guarantee you 100% you're going to get so much more out of a hackathon if you approach it to learn, to make friends, and to, like Ronak said, really, really just learn something. I know at Hackathon my first year, I met some really, really cool people. And the next year I got featured on like their Instagram, and I got like expedited under their sort of application cycle because I just knew a lot of the organizers and I just went around talking to people. So really just approach a hackathon as a place where you can learn, meet other people, because I definitely know that at Caltech my first year, I learned a lot because there was really nothing else to do. So yeah, really, really encourage everything to go under that mindset of like, I don't want to win first place, I want to learn. So there's sort of 5 tips that I give everyone, which is 1, is the track or category you're competing in very popular? An example of a very popular track might be education or sustainability. At almost every single hackathon, you'll have education or sustainability show up as a track. It's almost like a guaranteed that those will show up. So if you're at a hackathon where there's a track called social good, or there's something called civic engagement, like at SD Hacks, just think about it. There's probably going to be less people doing these tracks or categories because it's just so much more abstract and harder to think of an idea. But really just take on that challenge, and I think you'll be working under like constraints and everything, but that'll just like flourish into a really good idea. Second tip I give everyone, consider having a design-oriented person on your team. This is like a really, really big thing that I've been emphasizing within my last few hackathons or so, is that having like a design-oriented person really goes a long way, because like for better or for worse, sometimes the judges may look at your hackathon project for what it looks like, but not know that the backend is like a complete mess. So everything can look fine on the top, but and everything could be hard coded, but you know, it's a video, they can't really see. And that goes into my third point, which is take calculated shortcuts. A lot of the things you can hard code, don't lie about it though. For example, what I try to, I guess, tell everyone is you don't really need to make a login, sign out sort of authentication. It's probably just fine if you, I don't know, use Firebase to do like Google authentication or like Facebook authentication, or, you know, just don't implement a profile at all because you probably won't need it. It's just a demo, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, where you showcase the main feature. And the main feature of an app is almost never going to be like the authentication or the login system. So really take calculated shortcuts. Don't lie that you're taking those calculated shortcuts because they can see through it. And if you do lie, you may face penalties afterwards. But really be aware of what your core features are and develop that MVP and list of features out before you go into it. How do I code password reset? I don't know either. This is why I use Google authentication. So fourth tip I give everyone is spend time planning out a solid pitch. Before, for in-person hackathons, I would spend about 2 hours, 3 hours, like solidifying that pitch, the dev post, all my slides, and the demo. Nowadays, I spend about twice the amount of time. And that's because it's so much harder to bounce back and forth the conversation with the judge if you're just a video and if you're just text on a screen. So you need to spend so much more effort nowadays to really communicate to the judge that your project is like a winning project. So nowadays I spend about 6 hours before submission deadline, video editing, getting all of my like templates up and planning out that solid pitch, because like I said, you can't talk to judges anymore. So you need to be sure that every single word you use is budgeted correctly and succinct. The last tip I really want to emphasize in everyone, because I think a lot of us here today are sort of first-time hackers, is utilize your mentors. I cannot like mention this enough, but the only reason why I'm like here today is because I had so many mentors around me during like SD hacks and all my first hackathons. I specifically remember like during HackXX, I had someone called Edward Chen. He was the past president of Tau Beta Pi. I think he sat with me for like 3 or 4 hours just helping me learn like Node.js or like Flask, and it helped so much. And that was sort of like one of the most memorable moments of my early hackathons, was having mentors sit down with me for like 3 to 4 hours and almost essentially having private tutoring, because you can't get this anywhere else. No one's going to sit down with you for 4 hours and tutor for this stuff with you for free. But yeah, utilize your mentors. Also, another quick tip, which is like a sub point of this, is that sometimes, depending on the category or track or API challenge, your mentors might actually be a judge. So I know at Hackathon, my second year, we were competing under the Mux API challenge, and there's only one person manning the booth. And so he was also the only mentor, right? So I think we utilized him for about like 7 or 8 hours, just diagnosing the API and having him like code parts of it. And when the sort of judging rolled around, he came up and was like, yeah, I'm your judge. Kind of already know what the app is about, kind of helped out with this. And we ended up winning the API challenge because he was already so invested in it. So really just utilize your mentors. So these are some common questions that I get for a lot of first-time hackers. So the first one is, what if I don't code? You don't need a code. you can learn, and you can take on sort of different roles as well. I think during my first hackathon, I didn't know almost any CSS. Like I literally like coded like very minimal CSS like in middle school that I completely forgot. And I learned it the day of. So if you don't code, don't be afraid to learn. But that doesn't also mean that everybody on a team needs to be a coder. Like I said, for that Hack UCI project, Gibby, one of our team members was actually a designer, and she didn't really need to code because our team dynamics were two front-end developers, one back-end developer, and a designer. And designers will really help a lot for a hackathon specific because they can help with video editing, slide decks, wireframes, and writing up a really, really cool dev post. Second question that's pretty common, what if I don't have a team? I believe there will be team matching later in the day under SD Hacks, but typically, generally at any hackathon, there will be team matching hosted by Major League Hacking. If you don't know what Major League Hacking is, I don't know why I didn't explain this earlier, but Major League Hacking is this super, super huge sort of organization which hackathons are under, and you can browse like all the collegiate hackathons every single year. They also come and sponsor with like Soylent, Awake Chocolate, really cool stuff, and stickers, a lot of stickers. So just go to team matching or just post in like Discord or Slacks. That's just a great way of getting to know people. And I think Sid also said there's a team building event at 6 p.m. If you want to know what that's like, I've been in a few. So it depends on the MLH coach. But when I was in person, the way it would work is that the MLH coach is like, hey, everyone, we can separate ourselves by like beginner, intermediate, advanced. Sometimes they won't do this, and like people would split up. And then you would talk amongst like groups of people in a circle about like what tech stacks that you use. Then you'll come back together, and then the MLH coach will go in the front and be like, all right, so does anyone have an idea and want to pitch it, right? So like I would come up and be like, hi, my name is Stanley. I do this tech stuff. I do pitches. And my idea is I want to build a Tinder for dogs. And then it's like the MLH coach is like, who wants to join the Tinder for dogs and knows JavaScript, right? And then all the team members would go up to you. I'm not too sure how they do it this year, but that would be an example of like how team matching works. Twitter for cats. I feel like I know somebody that has done that idea before. So third question is, what if I'm really busy? That's also fine. You can do like your homework like during the hackathon. I know like with Ronak, SD Hacks my second year, I was doing like linked list PA with him. Not like with him, but like he was like watching me. I was like, yeah, let me do this real quick before I do some more React stuff. So like just completely take control of your schedule. Sleep if you need to. If you have a midterm this Monday, please sleep on the Saturday to Sunday night, and don't like try hard like 36 hours if you know you're gonna like spam a final or something. Take control of the hackathon. Don't like value this hackathon over your health really. And honestly, yeah, like Ronak said, it's completely fine not to finish a hackathon. I have definitely been in situations where it's like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I have a midterm, so it's like, I'm just gonna walk around, network with people, and go to hackathons or like go to like booths and take free food. So what tech stack should I use? This question is a very big, it depends what you want to do and what you want to learn. If you already know Node.js and you want to learn something else, why not try Django or try Flask? Or even try like a backend stack in Golang, right? What tech stack you should use is completely up to you. But my personal recommendation, like this is me personally, not talking on behalf of like SD Hacks or ACM Innovate, is that if you're coding on the front end, I would just try learning vanilla JavaScript first, learning some basic concepts through like Fetch, learning like some CSS, know how to use like Flexbox or Grid, and just spam a bunch of web, or there's like, what is it, W3 school, like sort of tutorials. So that's like sort of front end stuff and back end stuff. It really depends again, but I personally recommend learning either Node.js because it's JavaScript and the front end is already in JavaScript. So if somebody is proficient in JavaScript on the front end, they can sort of help you on the back end, not completely, but having JavaScript on back end front end is very helpful sometimes. I did not start with Node.js my first time. I used Flask Flask is an out-of-the-box sort of backend solution that is really, really easy to use. So if you've taken, I think, CSE, I think one of the 8 or 11 series is now like Python. You can use Flask. Python, super, super easy to use, especially with Flask. But like I said, tech stack is completely up to you. And lastly, what if I don't finish? You don't need to finish to like really demo or anything. I know like at Hard Hack, my second year as well, there was this team by Daniel Trung, and it was it was basically this cardboard sort of pizza table in which like his team didn't finish at all. It's called rotatable, and like it was supposed to be like I don't even remember the original pitch, but like it was supposed to have a camera that looked down at your table and like spin and everything. But regardless of the idea, the whole entire app was like not finished at all. There was only like 10 or 15 lines of code. So the only thing it would do would be like spin the cardboard back like one like rotation, then backwards, and that's all it did. It just spanned it just spinned the cardboard table around. And then the Qualcomm judge like went over and was like, "Whoa, this is actually a really cool idea. I know you didn't finish the actual app." And guess what happened? They won the Qualcomm award despite having 10 or 15 lines of code and like literally just a piece of cardboard that just spun back and forth. And that was okay. I'm gonna take a quick detour because like it's such a crazy story, but sorry, this is like a really quick detail. I just had to show this because it's so funny. This is the project. It's just a piece of cardboard. That's it. And it just spun back and forth. But yeah, that's sort of my sort of lesson for everyone is that no matter whether you finish a hackathon project or not, you can actually even still demo. You can still submit a dev post. Don't be afraid to sort of like refine your pitching skills because if you can pitch like a half-done project, then you can definitely pitch a complete project. So don't be afraid if you don't finish your project. You can either still demo or also just, you know, if you really want, leave as well, I guess. But yeah, that pretty much concludes all of my slides. I'm going to leave it up for, I guess, a Q&A if anyone wants. I really hope everyone liked this workshop. This was really fun for me as well. As someone who's been to like dozens and dozens of hackathons now, hackathons I can really attribute is the main reason why I've learned so much of the technical skills I have today, but also a lot of the soft skills too, because whether you know or not, pitching to judges is almost like pitching like a slide deck to like a VC. So you can learn so many interdisciplinary skills at a hackathon, whether that be design, entrepreneurship, or tech. Well, I'm really listening how early you started doing hackathons. If you did your linkless PA during one, yeah, that was very painful. Yeah, I did not know how to code at all, so I was like, get the best of both worlds. Just do a PA during hackathon. So like your mindset's already in like the code space. So if you approach a hackathon not knowing the code, you'll come out doing the PA very well anyways, hopefully. Yeah, but yeah, feel free to drop any questions in chat if you have any. I think we have like 10 minutes left. Yeah. Oh yeah, also we have resources. So yes, go to the ACM Innovate Discord. Ronak, do you want to give a quick pitch about ACM Innovate? I don't think I explained it too much in detail.
Oh yeah. So ACM Innovate is ACM's community of entrepreneurs, innovators, and designers. Basically, if you're interested in making a project or doing anything kind of outside class just to build something, you can join ACM Innovate. If the links are not working, that's a problem. We will look into that. But yeah, basically Innovate, we like to host workshops on entrepreneurship and stuff like that. Next quarter, we'll be doing a project system as well. Our top workshop in this quarter were basically, we did a workshop on pitching. So how to pitch, so very relevant to hackathons, as well as how to do an MVP. So how to build a project really quickly without actually coding anything. We do workshops like that. And we also just try to get people together who are interested in building things. Yeah, really cool org. And then also I recommend you join the regular ACM Discord as well. It's a really great online community of friends and stuff.
Yes, ACM Innovate is available for anyone to join. Yeah, that link is the same. So I think Christina asked, when looking for hackathons, are there ones to avoid or seek out? Not like specific names, but like red flags, poorly organized ones, or ones that are particularly popular, have interesting professionals. I haven't had, honestly, any bad hackathon experiences per se, because MLH is really good at vetting a lot of those hackathons. So if you go to this website, I'm gonna post all of the ones in chat. But yeah, no, I can't really think of anything that's like a red flag, because anything I go to all of these hackathons, I typically don't go to like dev posts, like random hackathons. Like I'm not gonna say that these are random, but like I mean, how do I phrase this better? Like hackathons are only on dev post. I usually apply to hackathons that are MLH affiliated because they're just so good at filtering them out. But yeah, I think some really cool ones to go to that I personally want to go to one day is like Tree Hacks, Hack MIT, Pen Apps. I think Pen Apps was the first ever hackathon, like ever. Or it's like the largest hackathon, but I actually think that Pen Apps isn't even MLH affiliated anymore. So there are also hackathons that aren't MLH affiliated that are really prestigious, really great. But just as like a baseline, MLH hackathons have a really high bar quality. This website kind of looks grayscale.
Yeah, that's because the PenApp's main website is just them flexing about all the past hackathons they've run.
Oh.
Yeah. UPenn is a very full, because UPenn had the first hackathon, so they're very proud of themselves.
Yeah. And here you can see SD Hacks, which means that this is a good hackathon. Everyone go to it. Cool. Does anyone have any other questions? I know I'm going to Hackathon this weekend, so it'll be very fun. I've also been at SAC. SAC has, this was a really good hackathon. This was my second ever hackathon during my first year. So I didn't know back then that hackathons, I thought before during my first year that hackathons were really hard to get into. So I got accepted to SAC Hacks as my second hackathon. I was like, whoa, I have the opportunity to go to Sacramento, but they didn't reimburse my plane ticket. So I spent $200 going to a 24-hour hackathon in Sacramento, only to fly back and misjudging. So that was a really fun experience. Got Sacramento Kings merch. So yeah. And we have more resources here. So this is like how to create your dev post. I recommend looking at this. These slides also have sort of hardware resources as well, and some mobile resources too. Full stack resources. Oh, yes. If anyone here, I guess this is sort of like a more intermediate advanced topic, but Ngrok is the hackathon savior. So what it basically is that if you're running your backend, for example, on like port 5000, it can tunnel it to anyone using like an Ngrok link. So like if I'm on Ronald's computer and he has his backend running, he can like Ngrok me his backend. I can get that link and use that as my backend without ever needing to download it myself or like setting up the backend or anything. It's so helpful. And I think at Hackathon my second year, we had like 3 Ngroks running because we forwarded the front end, we forwarded like the back end, and we just had like 2 backends as well. It was such a crazy idea. But yeah, think of it as like take someone's like local host and make it a public link anyone in the world can access. I think that's the easiest way to sort of explain it. We love Ngrok.
The other coolest thing about Ngrok, I put it in chat, but I like telling her in this. So Ngrok forwards any port. So that's not just websites. It involves TCP. So if you've ever played Minecraft before and there's a button that says open to LAN, you can do Ngrok TCP in that port, and then you can play Minecraft with your friends with pretty low lag, and it's just gonna host off your computer. So you're basically having, you can literally host your Minecraft server at localhost 3000 or whatever the heck. Because whenever you hit open the port, it'll open on the local port. So whenever I play Minecraft with my friends, I just turn on Ngrok server locally and just send it to them. And Ngrok is cross-platform; it doesn't matter. So yeah, highly recommend Ngrok. I think if you play TF2, you can do the same thing with that. Basically, any video game that allows for local multiplayer, you can Ngrok the port over to them, and it works. Very good.
Yeah. I guess sort of more intermediate tip too. React is a very, very common framework or sort of library to, it's technically a library, as people say. So React is a very common library to use because you have reusable components, which are like snippets of code. So like if anyone has like been doing like vanilla JavaScript for a long time, really, really recommend React because it's like a savior for hackathons because reusable components, so nice. Flexbox, I never use grid. Never ever use grid. Maybe for like images, I'll use them, but yeah. All right, we have like 4 minutes left. We can go like a full speed run or like on any questions. Does anyone have anything related? Doesn't even need to be like hackathon related. I want to know. I want to know like my favorite cat breed or like. Oh yes, it's the Norwegian forest cat. The Norwegian forest cat. I just swear someone's at the end of the YouTube video just gonna be like, what the hell is this guy talking about? So I'm just gonna end it here. So anyone watching on YouTube, bye bye. Hope everyone liked that sort of workshop, and good luck on whatever hackathon you'll be doing. Stop recording.